everyone, and welcome to this video. I'm Susan O'Byrne, and today we're going to talk about eliminating redundancy. Now, as regards writing, redundancy just means using more words than are necessary, and this can be problematic for your readers. First of all, because no reader is ever going to thank you for giving them unnecessary work, and secondly, because when you use too many words, you can make it difficult for your reader to find your message under all that text. And you always want your reader to find your message. Communicating a point to a reader is, after all, the main objective of any type of writing. So what we're going to do in this video is to identify some common patterns of redundancy that writers fall into, and then we're going to talk about how to avoid those so as to create writing which is more elegant and impactful. Okay, so let's jump straight in with the first common pattern of redundancy. Here, we're going to talk about repetitive wording. Now, with repetitive wording, I just mean using the same words more than once in a short space of time in a way which is unnecessary. So let's take a look at an example. Here we have an extract which reads, "The most positive responses were given by young interviewees. These young interviewees were highly educated." And we have repetition of the phrase young interviewees, and this is where you come in. What I would like you to do is to pause the recording here and see whether you can rewrite this sentence so as not to repeat the phrase young interviewees. Okay then, so pause here, rewrite the sentence and come back when you're ready. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you were able to come up with a solution. I'll just take you through a couple of my ideas. Firstly, we might write the most positive responses were given by young interviewees who were highly educated. So here we can use a relative clause instead of a second sentence and the repeated phrase. Another path we might take is to simply realize that both adjectives in the original extract, namely young and highly educated, modify the same noun, i.e. interviewees. And for that reason, we can just put those adjectives back to back to create a sentence which reads, "The most positive responses were given by young, highly educated interviewees." So always be on the lookout for repetitive wording like this in your own writing. Okay, let's turn to our second common pattern of redundancy, which involves redundant pairs. Now, a redundant pair is just a set of two words in which one of those words is unnecessary because the other word is already performing its job. To give you an example, if I were to tell you that I had an unexpected surprise yesterday, I would be using a redundant pair because a surprise is, by its very nature, unexpected. There is no need to use the word unexpected to describe a surprise. So the phrase unexpected surprise is a redundant pair. Right, so now it's your turn. The sentence below contains two redundant pairs. What I would like you to do is to pause the recording, identify the two redundant pairs, and rewrite the sentence to eliminate the redundancy. Okay then, so pause here, rewrite the sentence, and come back when you're ready. Okay, welcome back. So let's take a look at those redundant pairs. The first redundant pair we see here is the phrase "and also." The word "and" already means something additional, so the word "also" is completely redundant here. The next redundant pairing is made of the words "following" and "below." Because both of those words are performing exactly the same job in the sentence, we only need one of them. So if we eliminate both redundant pairs from our sentence, we can have either "the results are reported and analysed in the paragraphs below," or "the results are reported and analysed in the following paragraphs." So keep your eye out for redundant pairs in your own writing and eliminate them where necessary. Our next common pattern of redundancy involves prepositional phrases. A prepositional phrase is essentially just a preposition, like of, in, under, etc., and the words attached to it. Now, there's nothing wrong with prepositions and prepositional phrases in and of themselves. You'd find it extremely difficult to write a text of any real length without them. But problems occur when writers use too many prepositions in a short space of time. Because what commonly happens is that prepositional phrases break your sentences up into lots of little units of information, which makes it difficult for the reader to take all that information in. Let's illustrate this with an example. So, here we have a sentence with a lot of prepositional phrases, 8 to be precise. Our team of researchers studied a large number of samples of water over a period of 3 weeks in January and in March. We published the results of them. And I hope you'll agree that this sentence is neither particularly elegant nor especially easy to read. So let's see if we can improve things, shall we? What I would like you to do is pause the recording and rewrite the sentence so that it contains fewer prepositional phrases. Now, you don't have to eliminate every prepositional phrase from the sentence, just rewrite the sentences so that you can only have as many prepositions as are necessary. Okay then, so pause here, rewrite the sentence and come back when you're ready. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you have a sentence that you're happy with. I'll just give the idea that I came up with. Our research team studied numerous water samples over a 3-week period in January, and in March we published the results. So as you can see here, I've taken the number of prepositional phrases down from 8 in the original sentence to only 3 in the rewrite. And I hope you'll agree that the rewritten sentence gets the same message across in a manner which is more elegant and impactful. As I say then, prepositions are a vital part of language and you can never do without them completely. But when you look through your own writing, always ask yourself whether the prepositional phrases you have used are really the best way that you can articulate your point, or whether there is another way that you could make things easier for your reader. Okay, let's turn to our final common pattern of redundancy, which involves redundant modifiers and determiners. Just to clarify, modifiers may be adjectives, such as these. They may be adverbs, such as these. Or they may be phrases, like kind of, sort of, type of. With determiners, we could be talking about articles, possessives, or words like this, that, these, and those, or even words like some, any, many, enough, etc. Let's have a look then at how some of these words might be used in a redundant manner. Here we have a sentence which contains several redundant modifiers and determiners. And now you're up. What I would like you to do is to pause the recording and rewrite the sentence to eliminate those redundant modifiers and determiners. Okay, so pause here, rewrite the sentence, and come back when you're ready. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully you were able to eliminate the redundancy. Let's now take a look at the sentence without those unnecessary modifiers and determiners. Here we can see that the phrases particular, basically, some, and kinds of are all redundant, and we can eliminate them without losing any of the original meaning. To write any future study would likely yield similar results. So always be on the lookout for any redundant modifiers and determiners in your own writing. Okay, that's us finished with our common patterns of redundancy. I would just like to finish on a note of caution, which is that whenever you eliminate redundancy, you should always be careful not to lose or change any of the meaning from your original sentence. This can be a difficult skill to master, but if you can retain your original meaning while eliminating redundancy, your reader will always be grateful for the better reading experience. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and on to the next task.